I realized I was muted. I was saying, if there's any technical help you need, I'm here. Let me know.
Hello.
I hear you.
Okay. Hey, Lindsay. So I can't tell. How do I know if people are in here with me?
You got 4 people in here. You see over to the right, you got that chat. You can invite people to share their cameras if that's what you prefer. We just asked everybody to default to not share their screens.
Oh, so these. Okay. All right. So
we got chat.
And how do I invite? Do I just say it? Can they hear me?
Yeah, we can all hear you.
Okay. I've been on 6 different platforms this week. I just don't know how to do all of them. Okay. Yes. I would like for folks, if they would, to share their cameras.
All right.
So we can all see who's in the room together. All right. Click twice and also video. Okay, there we go. All right.
And you got a couple people off camera, but they're here.
All right. Cancel that. Share.
Marcy, I like the tiara of the day. I'm into it.
All right. Give me 1 second. All right, so trying to see how to. So I want to. So if I share my screen, am I going to lose the people?
Nope.
Okay, let's see.
No, you won't lose the people. Go for it.
Let's see what happens here. Ooh, what is that? What?
Are you?
What is? Okay, I don't know what's happening.
All right. I'll talk you through it. You're trying to share a PowerPoint.
Yes.
All right.
That's fancy.
All right. So turn off your screen share real quick.
Okay. So how do I do? Okay. Stop sharing. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now hit the screen share button again. Do share screen, and then it's going to give you 3 tab options.
Okay. Okay. So share screen.
You don't want to share the whole screen. You just want to share your PowerPoint, right?
Okay. Let's see. I just want to share the PowerPoint, yes, but my experience with just sharing the PowerPoint is that then I'll just share the PowerPoint. So how do I just share the PowerPoint?
All right. So do you have your PowerPoint open?
I do.
And when you hit the share screen button and hop in, it should give you like 3 tabs. You can select an application.
Okay. So share, it says application window. Okay.
And you want to select just that PowerPoint.
Application window. Let's see. Okay. It's open, but so it says your entire screen, application, or Chrome tab.
Application.
So application.
Yep.
And okay, let's see what happens. I'm just going to hit it. Let's see what happens.
So this is sharing your entire screen.
Okay. And several others. Okay, I stop. And so let me see what happens here if I stop doing that. Okay. All right, I'll do one more time and then we'll just proceed.
I'll get you there.
Okay. All right. So share screen.
So you don't. So you got those 3 tabs, right? Go to the application one.
Okay, I see applications. I see share your entire screen. Application window.
Application window.
So application window. When I click on that, then what it shows, okay, let's see.
You should have like a little list of each thing.
It only shows this window, what I'm looking at, what we're looking at right now. It doesn't show anything else in the application window.
Mm.
Yeah, that's all it's showing.
And you have the PowerPoint open?
I do.
Man. Well, I would say just do the screen share of infinity and just throw up the PowerPoint as your screen, and that'll probably make it work. So, all right, so go to screen share. I'm gonna click through it to make sure I'm telling you the right thing. Yeah, application window, you should be able to just grab your whole Excel, or your whole PowerPoint, sorry.
It's there. The PowerPoint is here. PowerPoint is open. And it's being weird.
Do you have multiple screens? Or do you have one screen?
I have one screen.
All right. Yeah, I think the way to make it work is share your screen again. And if you're looking at the PowerPoint, then it should just show us the PowerPoint.
Okay. So if I'm, all right, let's try that. So if I'm looking at the PowerPoint, let's see what happens here. If I do this, and I'm going to go to look at the PowerPoint. Now I'm looking at the PowerPoint. What do you see?
I see.
When I go to look at the PowerPoint, I don't see you anymore.
Is your PowerPoint full screen?
It is.
Take it off full screen.
Take it off full screen. Okay.
All right. See, because I see your browser. It's like, it thinks you have multiple screens. You're showing your Chrome browser. That's what you're doing. So stop the share, and then instead of application window, do share screen, and do your entire screen.
Share screen, and this is the entire screen. That's what I keep doing. When I went to application, I just saw, what we just saw, and then let's Chrome tab.
Do the first option, which is your entire screen.
Here we go.
Select that one.
Okay, let's see what happens there.
And now bring up the PowerPoint. And now put it in presentation mode. All right, we can see your PowerPoint.
Okay, but I can't see you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not seamless, but
okay,
it's a workaround, and it works.
Okay. So now, all right. Let me see what happens. Okay, if I do this, then I get that, right?
So,
okay. All right. So I'll go back here. So you can see the PowerPoint now.
Yep.
And when I'm here, everyone just sees this
magic
mirror.
infinity window. But that's fine. It's fun.
Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Lindsay, for your energy and your support trying to figure this all out. I am Jamie Washington, and my pronouns are he, him, and his, and I'm joining you today from the ancestral lands of the Piscataway tribal nations here in the Baltimore, Washington area. And I'm delighted to be here as a part of this 2021 NERP conference in New London, hosted from New London. It's an area that I have spent a good bit of time in at the Naval Academy, as well as at Connecticut College. At different points in my career. So when I saw New London, it was exciting. So we get to spend a little bit of time together today looking at exploring and understanding QTPOC, young people in pride, and engaging intersectionality. And so I want to say thank you for the joining. I am very clear that in this particular contextual moment in time, that anything can happen in the virtual space. So, we do the workarounds, we do the best we can, and we kind of keep it moving. So what I want to do is just kind of talk a little bit. I am going to share the PowerPoint, and because there's just a few of us in the room, I'm going to share screen at some time. I'm going to stop sharing screen so that we can just go ahead and engage, and I'm going to move right along. So here we go. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to just kind of talk us through some of this that I have right here in front of me. So we're going to move right into, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my intentions for this space. And the intentions are to kind of create a space where we can talk through and talk about what it means, what the experiences are, the intentions to deepen the level of authentic engagement about and across intersecting identities of race, sexualities, and gender. And to consider the experiences of QTPOC folks and what it might mean for creating a more inclusive experience in Pride. And the third thing that I want to do in our time together today is to just offer and share some tips. For what it means to create, to stay engaged at the intersections. With that named, the way I'm going to try to move through this over the next 50 minutes or so is this. I'm going to just talk a little bit about kind of the purpose of Pride as we think about it. And I want you all grounded in that, hearing your voices, hearing the voices of QTPOC folks, to share what the issues and concerns are often as I engage QTPOC, particularly young people in this context of Pride stuff, and then to offer some tips for staying engaged. So that's, kind of where I want to be in this time and space that we have together. What I would like, because we're a small group, that we can just go ahead and introduce ourselves. If there's folks who are in the room that can be on camera that would like to do that would be great. If not, we would still invite you to go ahead and just kind of, say hi, introduce yourself. And what I'm asking is kind of what brought folks to this session today, right? So as you think about, kind of your roles, your experiences around Pride, what brought you to this particular QTPOC Young Persons in Pride session? So we can start anywhere. If folks can see each other, why don't we go ahead and I'll start with Marcy, if that's okay. And then Marcy, you can invite in the next person.
Sure. First of all, thank you for being here with us and for powering through the wonderful world that is technology.
Absolutely.
And Leo, thank you as always for being the penultimate tech guru to get us through this.
Great.
Alicia, I saw that. Hi, little guy, little person. I find that though we do hold specific events for our youth, we hold the youth prom every year. As a matter of fact, our events are next month. And we have a special section in our festival for youth participation. It never really seems like enough.
Okay.
Most of our youth are BIPOC, and we're attached to a community center. So for us, the whole process is a little bit different.
Okay.
We already have a very strong youth group, and we've been doing really well during the pandemic, but there's always room for improvement. Like the keynote previous to this session stated, we can always learn more, and that's why I'm here, is I'd really like to learn more.
Great. Thanks, Marcy. Who you want to invite in?
I am going to pass it to Ari.
Great. And if we can mute ourselves if we're not speaking, that'd be great, just to kind of minimize background noise.
Ari is currently occupied. I will throw it to Pierce then.
Okay.
Hey, folks.
Hi.
How you doing? Thanks for doing this. I guess the reason why this one is important because it is so relevant for all of us to be really doing a deep dive into what our programming is, and just to make sure that we're always like on top of it, because I mean, so much has changed simply in the last 10 years, not to mention the past 12 months. So, I mean, we just have to have our ear to the ground there. And there is no doubt that not only is there the intersection with youth, there's intersection with QTPOC, and there's just these overwhelming needs for us to be, targeted in who we're talking to, what we're saying, and finding the balance between the celebration and the activism. So that's really what brought me to this one, and thank you for it. I'm sorry I'm going to have to go off screen because I'm multitasking like all of you right now. But thank you for doing this, Jamie.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Who would you like to hand off to, Piers, before you go off screen?
Let's see here. Alicia, did we?
Nope.
Okay,
all right. Got Alicia and Tiffany.
All right. Hi, Tiffany. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Okay.
So hello all. So I guess for me, coming to this one really resonated because one, I love Dr. Washington, and I've seen Dr. Washington speak at other events, and I just know he's fabulous. But also Polly and Lindsay's keynote address really kind of hit me about the importance of engaging youth and also looking at how we develop our prides to be more inclusive. So I'm hoping that I can take some things away from this in planning our next Pride celebration. Excellent. So I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany.
Excellent.
Yo.
Hi, Tiff.
Background loud. We're doing some things over here.
No worries.
But yeah, I decided to come into this space because I feel like there's more that I can do personally. So not just Pride-wise, but personally. So I am a part of Capital Pride, and we do have Youth Pride. We have organizations like Smile and Wanda Alton Foundation who, do a lot of the youth things. But I feel like me in general, that I can offer myself or lend myself to them a little more. And so I just want to come in and see what info I can get on how to actually do that. Excellent.
Thank you. Thanks, Tiff. And why don't we just go ahead and invite Tommy in, if you would. We're in our introduction and what brought you to this particular session, and kind of where you're joining us from. Where are you joining us from in this conversation?
Hi, folks. Tommy Hom, he and his NYC Pride. Work is never done, so our theme this year has been the fight is not over. So we kind of always look forward as to what's missing and who we've left behind. So
sure.
I think we're still in this conversation of people of color and how to be more inclusive and build equity around all these issues.
Excellent. Well, great. Thank you all, and thank you for putting your voices in the room. And we know that in the virtual space, this is an opportunity to, kind of join from all over the country, and really to begin to think and to continue thinking about, as was already named, our opportunities to create more inclusive and current experiences for Pride. I am going to just ground us in what I find is very important is one of the dynamics of Pride and of many kind of annual events is that there are folks who've been around and involved for years that just kind of show up and they get busy kind of doing stuff, and we bring new people in and so on and so forth. Sometimes, and I invite you to think about this, sometimes we ground each other in why we do this, and other times we just get busy doing it again, right? And what I want to invite us into as we think about this whole QTPOC and youth experience in Pride, is to go back to why Pride, right? Why do we do these? Why, and I know that many of our Pride organizations do more than the Pride celebrations, right? We've got all kinds of things going on all year long. I know that there's themes of Pride 365 and so on. And so we're looking at all the ways we get to show up in Pride beyond the weekend or the week or the month even of events. And so I, as I was preparing and thinking about this, I found that Pride is a promotion of self-affirmation, dignity, equality, and increased visibility for LGBTQIA+ plus individuals as a social group, as opposed to the shame and social stigma that is often the predominant outlook, and to bolster a more inclusive civil rights movement. And so when you think about that as a reason, and I invite you to think about as you go back to your own boards and councils and committees that actually plan and implement your prides, that you start with why we do Pride. And then we engage that why with the lens of QTPOC and young people, right? So are we able to promote self-affirmation? Are we promoting self-affirmation, dignity, equality, and increased visibility for young people and QTPOC folks? So as you look at this definition here, are we Pride as opposed to shame and social stigma is the predominant outlook that bolsters most rights movements. So we want to just pay attention to, as we move into this conversation, how in fact we are engaging our practice with the lens to QTPOC folks. With that, I want to invite just a few minute conversation around what people have experienced, similar to what Marcy started us out with around how she, we know that we have these events and those events, but how has as you think about your committees and your groups that do Pride, what's been your experience with the conversations as you consider your experience with engaging QTPOC issues for Pride? Just a couple of voices. Everyone doesn't have to be in, but I'm interested in your response to this question. My experience engaging QTPOC issues and experiences in Pride celebrations. So anybody, how does that get talked about? Who talks about it? What are the dynamics that come up around that? You can just unmute and come on in, just a couple of voices. What's been your experience engaging QTPOC issues and experiences in Pride celebrations?
Well, I'll be the first to share.
Mm-hmm.
So my experience in this is it's a job that I feel like we generally offload to people of color. Mm-hmm. We say, we need more outreach and representation here. Can you do that? Mm-hmm. And that is just the first thing that came to my mind.
Mm-hmm. 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 Who's relating? We often offload, right? Either the people of color that are on the committee, the people of color who are in our networks. It's like, this is what we need you to do. Okay, all right. What else? Anybody else in terms of what your experience has been engaging QTPOC issues and experiences?
I will say something if no one else is up there. I have found that the biggest conundrum is trying to explain to other white folks why this is necessary and why it's important.
Sure. Right.
And the pushback is usually, but you're white. And my response to that is, but I'm human.
Okay. So trying to explain to other white folks why this matters, why we should be paying attention to this, and then they don't understand why you're saying something about it, right? So what does this have to do with you? And why would it matter? Yes. Yep. Yeah, please.
Would you mind repeating the question?
Yeah. So it's what's my experience engaging QTPOC issues and or experiences in Pride celebrations. So as we attempt to plan and organize and so on, what comes up, as you think about kind of the QTPOC experience? Yep, go ahead. And Lindsay, is it Lindsay that I'm talking to?
No, actually it's Leo. I'm sorry, I changed it because she's doing it. But I wanted to tell you, there was some comments in the chat.
Okay.
Tommy Hahn said safe spaces, and Tiffany said indeed. She also said it's difficult because folks don't relate. It's not an issue.
Okay. All right. So it's difficult because folks don't relate. And part of what I just want to invite us to think about as it's in the title, it's this notion of intersectionality, right? And what that means for this conversation in particular. Can you all see my screen right now? Can you see the slides? Okay, good. I want to just talk for a moment about the term intersectionality. Many of you may have heard it. Some of your committee members or planners might not know a whole lot about this, but the term intersectionality is coined by Black feminist scholar Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989. While the theory began as an exploration of primarily the oppression of Black women within society in ways in which both exist at the intersection and experience intersecting layers of different forms of oppression, today the analysis has been expanded to include more aspects of our social identity. I just wanted to highlight that piece for a moment, because as we are talking about this whole notion of engaging QTPOC folks, we're talking about an intersectional dynamic. Folks who are minoritized by sexuality and gender identity, as well as race, right? And that as folks are navigating their experience, sometimes it's not clear whether what they're bumping into is race, or is it both race and sexuality, or both race and sexuality and gender identity, and all of those things. And so helping folks to understand the layered dynamic that shows up when you have multiple minoritized identity is some of what Marcy is raising and talking about. And folks don't understand why this is an issue or why we should be raising and engaging this. The notion of understanding intersectionality feels particularly important. I'm going to try to share a short clip from some voices of QTPOC folks. And I just want you to listen to the issues raised, right? The issues raised. If the clip doesn't work, I'll just let you know where the link is that you can look at it later on. But I found this very illuminating in terms of raising the dynamics that are important for us to be thinking about as planners of Pride celebrations. Okay. So tell me if you can hear this in just a moment. If you can you see that right now?
Yeah, but the sound's not going to work. I could talk you through getting the sound. Oh man, but is it only in your PowerPoint presentation? Do you have a YouTube? It
is only in my PowerPoint presentation, but you know what? I think I'm somewhat wise enough to figure out how to get it. How to just go to the web browser and get it for us.
Yeah, and then we have to share screen differently, but I think it'll work just fine for you.
Okay, let me try it this way here. All right.
All right, before you start.
Okay, I'm not. Okay, there we go.
All right, can you unshare your screen?
Okay, I can.
All right.
I think I can.
You just do the stop sharing somewhere. All right, and then go to share screen again. Then you got those 3 tabs. Pick the Chrome browser.
Okay, go to Chrome browser.
And make sure in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a little checkbox that says share audio. Make sure you click that.
Okay, got it.
Okay, hit share.
Hit share again. Okay, so
Oh, and then you pick the Chrome tab. So you pick the one that says YouTube.
Okay.
Man, that should work. Fire away.
Let's see what we got here.
And full screen it.
I don't know.
They were like the first sitcom that like included lesbians.
I don't think it's that.
I like Friends.
Yeah, they have that
Carol
lesbian
and
This is
Carol and some of
POC
those.
controversy.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
So no one told me life was gonna be this gay. All right.
I know how many claps go with that.
Christian, this is me. I use he, him, his pronouns.
I'm Mary. I use they, them.
I'm Cora. I use they, she, but gender is a social construct, so it doesn't matter.
I'm Superior, and I use she, her pronouns.
Hey, yo, I'm Zai. I use he, him pronouns.
I'm Squish. I use they, them, or she, her pronouns. Yeah, gender's fake.
You're right. Alright, so what's it like being like a QTPOC in like real Southern Alabama? Like, how y'all feel? Who wants to like?
Who wants to start that one? Me.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Can of worms.
So, my personal experience is real specific, right? We've talked about it. For me, being black and being queer has always felt, even before I knew I was queer, it's been like, I've always had this feeling that I was going to have to choose at some point in my life between 2 parts of my identity, but I wasn't sure what the other one was. I was like, I know I'm black. What else is there? And I was like, oh, I see. You know how you find out queer? And so I was like, well, everyone can see that I'm black, right? So I'm gonna lean into this queer angle, like real hard. And so I pushed myself into a lot of queer spaces, into a lot of white queer spaces. And for me personally, I feel like until this past year, I gave up a lot of myself in order to allow myself to be queer. Because I wasn't able to express certain aspects of my blackness and like things that I feel passionate about because I wanted to focus on my queerness. Until I went to college and I joined our Students of Color Alliance at my school, I wasn't seeing visibly queer people of color. And then I got to my Students of Color Alliance and it's like, hey, we're basically all the brown people on this campus and we're all queer. At that point, I realized I could hold on to all the facets of my identity at the same time, and I didn't know that I could do that until that point.
I relate a lot to that because it is a lot of like sometimes you get into like predominantly white spaces that don't like they're kind of ignorant to what it's like to be a person of color. So you really just so you can be accepted by people who also identify with you in your like with your like sexuality and like gender identity, you give up a lot of like what makes you like your skin. Like you basically take your skin off just to fit in.
I'm gonna put my melanin over there.
And drop it off at the door. And that sucks because at the same time, I feel like I love having all of us here to have like this conversation, but I feel like there needs to be a space where we can have this conversation with people that are POC, because until we can have that conversation, no one can truly learn. It's good for us to like come and talk about it because we're all different people of color. We all have different experiences. So it is good for us to come and talk about it, but it is also good to educate so we don't continue to create an ignorant space within the LGBTQ community. Because I also think that a lot of like white people in the LGBT community don't think they can be racist because them and of themselves are a minority, like being in the LGBTQ community. So they think they relate to other minorities, and it's not the same at all. Anybody else got words to say?
Well, being Latino, just in general, it's a more masculine, or you have to be really feminine or masculine. Me and Mary were just talking about this yesterday. There's no in between. So can't be a man and be feminine at all. Or like people will start making rumors because grandmothers, chisme, all that jazz. You can only be one or the other. Or being queer is not even accepted at all, at least in my family, because we're very hardcore Catholics. My mom was, and so she became Christian when she eased up on queer people of color. But my dad, he always wants me to play football, and he doesn't really accept that I can be anything else besides masculine. He always asks me, what are some cute girls you met at camp, even though he doesn't know that this is a queer camp. So it kind of makes me feel a little worse every time he asks, what are some cute girls you're talking about? Because, like, I feel like this dread. They'll never accept me for who I am.
Yeah.
There's that.
I've always had to choose whether I'm American or Mexican, and I've always been told I'm neither. So even though, like, I have a home, I feel like I don't fit in. Because if I go to Mexico, everyone's going to be like, what is this American doing here? But then here, people are like, you're Mexican, go back.
Everyone here has probably had an experience with a very southern, very racist, homophobic, like multiple experiences. So it's weird to see that each experience in and of itself, even though it's like racist and like homophobic, is like they're targeting
there's different flavors.
Yeah, different flavors of racism. You pick your racism. Like, are you gonna be hit with a slur? What are they gonna say about where you're from? It feels weird to be a POC now because it feels like, oh, it's getting better. More people are recognizing that like blatant racism, but at the same time, it feels like we don't have anywhere to go besides other people who are POC.
It leaves us in this weird middle ground in purgatory, trying to find other people who are like, hey, look, I'm lost too. Can you direct me to an Applebee's?
Would you like the apples or the bees?
The bees.
I'll take both.
Bees?
As a mixed race person, I have been told by my family members that I'm too white to go to dim sum whenever we get dim sum. Which is like, if you don't know, it's like a big family style meal. Like everything gets passed on the table and stuff. And there's just this weird kind of shame about like that I'm too white to be Asian, but I'm too Asian to be white a lot of the time. And like whenever I go to get food with my family, my hands shake so bad that I can't use my chopsticks. And then there's the shame in asking for a fork. And then I just get made fun of like the rest of dinner, and they're like, oh, and like you're so white, and it's just like, thanks, Ma. I never felt like I had to choose between being queer and being a person of color, but I feel like I've had to choose between being Taiwanese and being white. Because my mom is white. My mom is very white. And so I'm white passing. But there's still this weird kind of like, whenever I'm out with my family, we get weird looks because I look white. My sister does not look white at all. My brother looks just not Asian. Or, whatever Asian looks like, according to white people, or even Asian people. And so there's just like, we get weird looks because my dad looks, I guess, like typically what people think when they think of an Asian person. That's my dad. And then there's me, and I look like a Caucasian and a half. And then my sister looks traditionally Korean, even though nobody in our family is Korean. And it's just this weird, I don't know, just kind of shame that I feel when I'm going out with my family for no reason, because society has pushed that I should feel shame for not looking Asian.
I can actually go off that. Because I identify personally as mixed race, even though like, and it's always like changed because like all the time people ask me if I'm like white or like if there's something in me that's like not white, but then it would always be followed by, oh, I can tell you're not like fully black, you have like really nice hair, or like, oh, like just like stuff like that. And then I like never told people that I was like anything other than black because it really offended me when people told me that I looked better than other black people. Yeah. And that like it really, really bothered me. And one time I had an experience at school where someone I just was like, no, I'm just black. And they were like, no way, like your hair is like really nice. There's like no way.
You too pretty to be a complete black.
I was like, what? What? I've changed a little bit because my mother is half Thai and black, and my dad is Haitian. But like, I was predominantly raised like by my mother, and she's very black and very Asian, both at the same time. And like, I've received a lot of like her culture, and it's raised me to be who I am. And so like, there are aspects of me that are like really, really Asian, and like, I can identify with Asian culture and being Asian. I don't know why I would have to like feel ashamed of it because I'm black, and I don't know like why I should ever have to like choose between like being black or being Asian. It's just like really weird because I feel like because I'm predominantly black, I should identify more with it. And then my own family, they like make fun of me, and they're like, "Oh, Sophia, you're so white. You act white. You don't identify with black culture." And it's like, I completely do identify with black culture and being black, but no one seems to get that. And like, I find that even among like other black people, and I'm totally fine and comfortable, they don't seem very comfortable with me. I think, and I'm pretty sure it's because of how I look and how I choose to speak. And so like, you feel like there's rejection from like both sides, from like there's rejection from white people, from Asian people, black people, and you're just kind of in the middle. You're just like, nope, there's really nowhere I belong. Except for me, the only place I feel like I truly belong is usually in queer spaces, which is why most of my friends identify as queer.
I don't think we should have to like put ourselves down so that another person of like who is ignorant to continue to live and be ignorant, because I feel like we're not educating people. That's why I love like, because queer spaces are really good with that, about educating people, because everyone wants to talk about this is how you use pronouns, and this is what people go through and understand that, but no one's doing that for people of color.
Because of the fact that everyone has these different identities and these different intersections of their identities, usually between their gender and their sexuality, they do want to talk about what they experience and how to best handle those experiences. Because, you know, in a cishet world, we don't get to experience it the same way that the cishet people do. And so by raising awareness and by talking about it, we get to experience some form of relief. The fact that people don't allow us the space to talk about our experiences and things that harm us, even in queer spaces, I think is indicative of the fact that, of what you said, like almost at the beginning of this, white queers don't think they can be racist because they're already a marginalized group. And they don't think that marginalization can exist from within the marginalized, from within the margin, which isn't true. There's intersections to different aspects of identity and different aspects of things that people go through that we can still not understand and make light of in ways that are harmful to those people. And I think that's something that's important for the queer community to recognize.
Can we end with more friends?
Yeah.
All right. 1, 2, 3. And no one told you life was gonna be this gay.
All right.
It's terrific.
All right. Thank you. And I just want to create an open space for a moment around what you notice, right? As we think about creating space, including in space, what were some of the dynamics that you noticed that these young people talked about? Anybody? Let's just see what popped for you or what stood out to you. Was there anything that felt new or surprising? But yes.
Everybody, like, they felt like they needed to be so polarized one way or the other between this identity and that identity. It's like that was the default setting because that was what they were shown. And then they were like developing into being able to find comfort in between.
Yep. Trying to find comfort in wholeness, right? There was this whole dynamic of expectations around either or. What else? What else? Anybody else? And I'm trying to look at the chat here too, so I can see if anything else stood out to folks.
Tommy said so much can relate.
What did I hear? What did I miss? Say that again.
Tommy, he said so much can relate.
So much can relate. Yeah. So their support and great caring for one another, right? Being very, very, very important. And so finding space and community is so important, because sometimes that's not felt. And we know that this is true across the spectrum of sexual minorities and gender minorities, the struggle within families, but intersect race, and you can find another level of the dynamic that might play out in terms of folks needing to show up as the race identity. Yeah, and what that means. Yeah.
Something that I thought about is when it comes to intersectionality with our personal intersections, it's like we learn them at different times. It's like each age, the new development of gender expression and racial awareness and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so with these kids, it was interesting to see that, because that's right where they are in their life.
Exactly.
Every 3 years, they're getting another intersection. That stuff's happening after a certain point.
That's right. Exactly. So why I think while I felt really good about being invited to this, is that it's a reminder for us in terms of the journey, right? And so it's so easy to assume that because there is queer everywhere, that, folks are fine, that we've arrived, and the young people are at so much of a different place. And we know that, yes, there's more access than there's more information, more visibility than there was 20 years ago. That visibility is also coming with the cost and some assumptions. Yeah. You were trying to get in, Alicia?
So I was just going to say that, like, for me, listening to those kids talk, I think really amplified the fact that, like, as Pride organizers, we need to have spaces for kids to look at their queerness, but also their intersectionalities. And, like, kids need to be able to see themselves at some point in their life. And they want to see, Black queer folk, South Asian, Pacific queer folk,
Yep.
Other queer folk of color, Indigenous queer folk. They want to be able to see their identity and their wholeness in other people. So I think having places where those spaces can intersect is so really crucial and important.
Absolutely. And as we think about our programming and the spaces that get created, maybe the videos that get shared, or the books that get, given away, or those kinds of things, that it's important for us to recognize the importance of our young people being in a developmental journey, right? And so how are Pride spaces actually spaces where folks can learn more about themselves as well as celebrate themselves, right? One of the things that, we have seen as a dynamic is that often we think about the young people as those who connected to their LGBT group in college, or to spaces like that, where they may get some of this kind of opportunities to do learning. But I'm inviting us to hold that in many of our communities, our QTPOC folks might not be in college. Some of them may not be in college. They may not have access to an LGBTQ center or coordinator that is helping them figure out and navigate and name things. Let me just ask this. Can you still see my screen?
Not currently. But
Okay.
I did want to let you know, Tiffany said representation matters, and Ari said the young people embraced diversity, but also sought commonality and community.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to try to share again, and I want to just share some of the highlights from the experience. So you can see the screen now?
Yep.
All right. So I just want to as we move into the last parts of this, I want you to consider these things. and we talked a little bit about them, but I just want to highlight them as this young people talked about it. So the whole dynamic of race, sexual orientation, gender identity as first identity. Is there a first? What is first? Is there space to talk about not having to choose a first? And recognizing that even as we talk about that, folks are at different places on their journey around that. And so just because I'm minoritized by race doesn't mean that's my primary identity or my first identity or the identity that I've experienced pain from. Likewise, just because I'm minoritized by sexual orientation or gender identity, that doesn't mean that that's the first, right? And so this whole notion of actually engaging the intersection is important. The next piece around identity development. So how do I see myself? How comfortable am I with myself as a raced person, gendered person, gender identity person? The stereotypes and objectification and sexualized racism as a dynamic that often QTPOC folks are navigating in queer, predominantly white queer spaces, and then looking for spaces, naming and languaging issues. I was particularly struck by and these are young people in their late teens and early 20s that were talking about naming issues. And so gender is a construct, right? And how I name and see myself and what that means for us as we plan and do pride stuff and expectations of where people go and what people can be a part of, the notion of trans and genderqueer identity visibility. Couple of folks named religion and how that matters at the intersection of race and how we are intentional in our constructing of spaces to not expect religion to be outside. So particularly for queer folks of color, religion is often a very central part of their communities, and maybe not being active church members, and some of them are maybe active church or temple or synagogue members, but the dismissal of religion is often the dismissal of community and family. And so how do we in spaces acknowledge that as another intersection that while for many queer folks, LGBTQ and A+ folks, religion has been a source of pain, there are also, in terms of race, religion has been a source of relief and support and comfort. And today, there are much more affirming, engaged religious spaces. Community and family acceptance. And this one felt really important to me because I know that all of us know that in many of our pride celebrations today, there's a lot of people there who are allies and cousins and aunts and accomplices and friends and so on and so forth, and that are not necessarily queer identified. And are we in our planning considering what resources we have for the cousin, for the best friend, for the family member who can then show up in support of the QPOC sibling, cousin, friend at the Thanksgiving dinner or at the family reunion, and they don't have to be alone. So one of the things that I've been noticing or paying attention to is that lots of folks are coming with their straight or het and cis friends, but they leave the space only having been in the celebration part, not in the learning part. So they have the capacity and they're able to say, I love mine at one level, but I don't know how to talk about or how to combat the pushback that I might get for that. As always, the whole notion of dating and sexuality is a thing with our young people and how we pay attention to that, and then role models and support networks. Do our QTPOC folks see themselves reflected in the planning of these events? So do I see myself on the stage? Do I see myself as a future coordinator, planner, active in the community? And certainly that is what we're hoping, that our young folks will see themselves as the next generation of NERP and Pride planners. and what's the work that we're doing with white LGBT communities to help them to see the intersections, to help them to see the importance of not assuming that because you have minoritized identity in one space, that therefore you get another identity, you get the other identity. So and I know that we are better today than we were 20 years ago, and there's still lots of work to be done, particularly because lots of our leadership are folks who didn't have to learn and to engage that. We were just simply, I have a Black friend, I have a Latinx friend, I have an Asian friend, but we weren't necessarily dealing and engaging race. We were actually dating across race and never talking about race. And likewise, navigating the dynamics of trans and homophobia within POC communities. And so I share these because I want us to be thinking about the issues that we might have an opportunity to engage as we are doing our plannings and the things to keep into consideration. I want to just leave you with these 4 points and then see if there are any questions. Here are some tips for more inclusion of QTPOC young folks. And first of all, it's involving younger and older QTPOC folks in the visioning and the planning of all of Pride, not just the part that we want to have them involved in, not just so this is going to be QTPOC space. We want you all thinking about that. How are we involving their voices at the table for the entire experience? What you see there is consider context, and why that's important right now is we are in a particular heightened racialized moment in our country. And that as we think about our Pride situations and being in the 10th day of the George Floyd trial, it is likely that we will be moving into Prides in the context of potentially a verdict. And what will that mean for us, whichever way the verdict goes, and how that's going to inform how QTPOC folks show up in Pride celebrations and how Pride celebrations can acknowledge the experiences through the lens of race as well. To build the capacity to engage the intersections of race, sexuality, and gender identity spectrum. So as a leadership group, as you're working with your groups, that we have to, on our committees, on our commissions, begin to talk effectively, being able to move through the discomfort, not having our QTPOC folks, older or younger, leave the committee because there's no capacity to engage across about race. And then to commit to resources to support QTPOC full inclusion. So that might mean, special brochures or special events or special artists, or not special, I mean additional artists that really are focused on those experiences. That experience benefits the entire Pride experience, not just the QTPOC folks. But QTPOC folks then get to see themselves represented in those efforts. And finally, don't allow the existence of a QTPOC Pride, like in Baltimore, we have Black Pride, DC, we have Black Pride. Don't allow those experiences to be excuses for not making a commitment to creating space and creating resources for all of folks. Create partnerships and collaborate with the Black Pride or the LGBT or the Latinx Pride, or if you've got other racialized prides, connect with the leadership in those spaces to look at how we can make the city or the town, or like we had Baltimore Pride, Capital Pride, more inclusive. So I'm going to stop there and see if there are any questions, if that made sense to you. We've got all of 60 seconds.
That was terrific. Thank you for the very poignant, actionable items there. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. You're so welcome, Pierce. Thank you so much. And again, I will be sharing this with the presentation with the folks who invited me, with Alicia. And please feel free to share this information. It is our hope that as we move from this place, that we will look at how we are including the voices of QTPOC folks as we move into this season of Pride in a whole different way.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Well, I'll see all you guys at our plenary at 4:00.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Dr. Washington.
All right. Good. You take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.